Hello, everyone. Welcome to Science Buffs, the ultimate podcast for STEM enthusiasts. Thank you all so much for tuning into this week's episode. This is our bonus episode. I'm Abby, your co-host.
And I'm Sam.
Hello, Sam. Thanks for joining me on this bonus episode.
Bonus episodes are the most fun.
I know. It's like a little chat, because they're just not as serious. We're not teaching anything super complex here. So today we're going to be talking about Amelia Earhart. So this is something we've been wanting to do where we highlight women in STEM or historical. I guess it doesn't have to be a woman, but we happen to have a woman in STEM this time. And that is Amelia Mary Earhart. And we came to this bonus episode idea because of Amelia Rose Earhart, who released this book, which is Learn to Love the Turbulence. So we read this book. We're going to give a little review at the end and talk a little bit about the things we liked. But we thought it would be a good idea to just do a little biography episode about Amelia Mary Earhart as well. So let's buckle up because I'm going to be teaching you about Amelia Earhart. So I have a timeline pulled up on pbs.org. So I'm just kind of going to be going through that and we'll talk about her life because she was a very interesting woman. I feel like you haven't said a word. I've just been
I went on mute and then I coughed and then I was worried if I opened my mouth again, I'd cough again. So I'm good now.
I've said probably 1,000 words so far.
I'm here now. Yeah, no, I'm super excited. Love both Amelia Earharts. We talked about it on a previous bonus episode. We've met Amelia Rose Earhart and she is awesome and I wish I was her sometimes.
Yeah, she is great. And we'll get into the review of her book, but I like her attitude and that carries over into her book. So
yeah.
All right, let's talk about Amelia Mary Earhart, who is the woman that most people have heard of, flight around the world. So she was born July 24th, 1897. I will quiz you, Sam.
Oh, no.
This is one that I don't think there would be a reason to know, really, but what state was she born in?
Arkansas?
And, okay, close, kind of. It's like a neighboring state to us.
Yeah, any clues with geography I will not get.
But Kansas. Yeah.
That's right. She's from Kansas.
Atchison, Kansas.
Atchison, Kansas.
Okay. She has one sister, Muriel. So just fun fact for you. Growing up, Amelia Earhart lived primarily with her maternal grandparents in Atchison during the school year, and then she spent the summers with her parents in Kansas City. So kind of an interesting arrangement they had.
Taylor Swift has been spending a lot of time in Kansas City.
Yeah, she has.
Continue.
That reminds me, I'm such a big fan of the New Heights podcast now, and all I send to Sam is reels of Jason and Travis Kelce just talking and being hilarious. So yeah, go Kansas City.
I didn't mean to deter, but it is national news.
That was important. Okay, despite her grandmother's disapproval, it says Amelia spends her free time roaming the outdoors, riding imaginary horses, climbing trees, sledding, and hunting. So she was kind of a tomboy, if you will. 1908, so she would be 11 years old. She rejoins her parents in Des Moines, Iowa. So I guess her parents at some point moved in that time, and she went to go reunite with them. She sees an airplane for the first time at the Iowa State Fair. So this is, I was about to say this is where she really gets her love of flying, but she later recalls being unimpressed. And it says,
really?
She said it was a thing of rusty wire and wood and looked not at all interesting, was her quote from seeing the plane. It says not until a decade later at a stunt flying exhibition that her passion for flight is awakened. So yeah, it's funny that she did not care at all the first time. I assumed she would just love it the first time, but no,
so
that's not the case.
That's interesting too, because I feel like a lot of people kind of are lukewarm on flying until they actually are in an airplane themselves. But so she was fixed by them
Yeah.
when she saw the stunt flying, which is crazy.
Right.
Back then, when they had people like standing on airplanes, the barnstormers.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it was so early in flight that I guess if she just saw like wood and rusty wire like strapped together, she'd be like, what the heck is this? So it probably wasn't inspiring at all. She's
Yeah.
not seeing like a Boeing 747. Like, oh my gosh, we can do this. So
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay, 1910 to 1915 are turbulent, difficult years for Amelia and her family. Her grandmother, who raised her, dies in 1911. And then her dad really struggled with alcoholism and lost his job. And he was checked into a sanatorium for a month, like basically a rehab, but it was a sanatorium. The family then moved to St. Paul, Minnesota in 1913, and he just can't recover. He is an alcoholic and he can't find a job, and so his wife leaves him and moves Amelia and Muriel to Chicago. So she's moved like a decent amount of times at this point.
How old is she at this point?
18.
Okay.
So yeah, that was up until 1915. So yeah, she would be 18. Okay, June of 1916, Amelia graduates from Hyde Park High School in Chicago. It says that she excelled in science, only enrolling at Hyde Park after determining that it had the best science program in the area, but she had a lot of trouble making friends. Um, in her yearbook, the caption reads AE, so Amelia Earhart, the girl in brown who walks alone. So she was kind of like a
Oh my
loner.
gosh.
Yeah, just like really sad. And also, so this timeline, I've looked up a couple of timelines, and I don't think any of the other ones mentioned this to that extent, because later she's like doing all this stuff. She's so cool, she's so famous, and she's doing like fashion modeling. And she was this loner in high school.
That's
So
crazy.
another parallel to Taylor Swift, although I don't think Taylor Swift was that much
I
of a
think the
loner, but she
moral
always
of the
talks about
story
that.
is that high school is just a different universe and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so true. Okay, fall 1916 to 1918, Amelia attends the Ogons School. I don't really know how to pronounce that, but it's an exclusive finishing school outside of Philadelphia. She again excels in her studies and becomes vice president of her class, but she does not graduate because she chose to volunteer at Toronto's Spadina Military Hospital as a nurse because this was during World War One. So she was helping World War One soldiers recover at the hospital. It says, while in Toronto, she attends a flying exposition with a friend. This is where the love of planes starts. A stunt pilot dives at Amelia and her friend, and there was a quote where she said, I am sure he said to himself, watch me make them scamper. Amelia later recalled, but Amelia stood her ground. She points to this incident as a personal awakening. And the quote is, I did not understand it at the time, but I believe that little red airplane said something to me as it swished by.
Yeah, but it doesn't say her friend stood her ground. Her
No,
friend
I
was
think
probably out of there.
yeah, from that I gather her friend was like,
I'm
I'm
out of
getting out of
here.
here. Yeah, so I'm guessing her friend didn't try to circumnavigate the globe. Like, I never want to be around a plane again. Okay. Fall of 1919 into 1920. Amelia enters the pre-med program at Columbia University, but after a year decides to leave and join her parents, who have reunited in Los Angeles. So she's also been in school a long time. There's a lot of schooling happening with her. So
Yeah.
anyway, she ended up leaving there after a year. December 28th, 1920. Oh, okay. This is a different air show. I guess she went to quite a few air shows. Amelia attends an air show on Long Beach with her father, with pilot Frank Hawk. She takes her first ride in an airplane. She was quoted to say, by the time I had got 200 or 300 feet off the ground, I knew I had to fly. So that was
Yeah.
really the what clinched it for her. January 3rd, 1921, she has her first flying lesson with pilot Nita Snook. She works a variety of jobs, truck driver, photographer, stenographer, to work to save money for these lessons. And 6 months later, she's able to purchase her own airplane, which was a yellow Kinner Airster biplane, and she names it the Canary. That's impressive. She's she's grinding. She's working on the jobs.
I love biplanes, by the way. They're still some of my favorite planes to look at.
You do know a lot about planes. I was just
Actually, what is a biplane, Abs?
It has two engines.
No, a biplane.
No, it has a propeller and an engine.
Each side has two wings.
Gosh. Yep, that's what I meant.
Yeah. It is what you meant, yeah.
Those are what the stunt pilots usually rode on, right?
Yeah, like, the barnstormers.
Yeah. What does that actually mean, a barnstormer?
A barnstormer is somebody, I just actually looked up a picture to remind myself. Well, not to remind myself, but I'm going to send it to you.
Okay.
A barnstormer was essentially an aviation stunt person. So they would go up in biplanes and they would stand on the top of the wings.
Okay.
And they would make pyramids, multiple people on top of the wings and do stunts. It's crazy. While the plane's flying.
That is nuts. I don't know why people
Well, we don't do that anymore.
Do the things they do. Yeah. Didn't end too well probably for multiple.
We just jump from space balloons and hit Mach 1.
Yeah.
Now, like we talked about in one of our recent episodes.
Wait. I think this is coming out before then.
Never mind. We're going to have to cut that out.
I'll bleep it. We're batching episodes here. We get jumbled on when the release date.
Sorry, everyone.
If it comes out before, I'll bleep.
No, it's not. That came out today.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so yeah, we talked about it. Good call.
Anyways, continue.
Okay, anyway, December 15th, 1921, Amelia passes her flying license tests given by the National Aeronautic Association. She flies in the Pacific Coast Ladies Derby in Pasadena 2 days later. 2 days later. That's a quick turnaround. She just got her license. She was pretty bold, as we will see the more we look into her life. But okay, so October 22nd, 1922, she sets the unofficial altitude record for female pilots. She flew the Canary to 14,000 feet.
Wow.
Which is high. I didn't think it progressed that quickly, the altitude and stuff. In a very short amount of time. High. May 16th, 1923, she's issued an international pilot's license by the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale. The FAI.
That's very fancy.
Is the French International Pilots Association. She was the 16th woman ever to achieve an international pilot's license.
16?
Also,
1/6.
1/6. I believe she was the 6th American woman to get her pilot's license.
Who was the first? I have a quiz for you.
You know this?
Who was the first African American woman to get her pilot's license?
Okay.
Bessie Coleman.
Okay, that sounds familiar. I probably should have known. I don't know if I ever learned about her actually.
They have a picture of her in the Soarin' ride in Disneyland.
Yeah, okay. Now
so if you're waiting in line,
actually, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I actually I'm going in March to Disney, so I will.
You better look out.
Be on the lookout. Okay, cool. 1924. She took a hiatus from aviation. It says Amelia's parents divorced again. So they were separated, they got back together, then they divorced in 1924. She drives with her mother from California to Massachusetts, where they move in with her sister Muriel. Amelia goes to New York briefly to re-enroll at Columbia, but she soon moves back to Boston, where she works first as a teacher and then a social worker at Denison House, teaching English to Syrian and Chinese immigrants. So she's kind of all over the place. I feel like she reminds me of a lot of people we went to school with, or a lot of just female engineers. I don't know, where there's just a million interests, and she's like, I'm going to enroll here. Well,
I think maybe not. I think that's you.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely me.
Then there's me who just picks their degree and just.
I didn't want to be I'm so much like Amelia Earhart, but that's maybe not a great thing sometimes, but
you're an unsettled
curious.
spirit. You just want to do a bunch of different
Like,
things, and you're constantly interested in learning new things.
yeah, I just, there's
Exhibit
a lot of
A, the
things to
banjo.
do. True. I think I have it in the closet right over here. Maybe one day on a bonus episode, I'll just play the banjo and we'll talk about like the physics of it or something.
Yes.
Okay, next stop on the timeline, 1927, Amelia joins the Boston chapter of the National Aeronautic Association and is occasionally featured in newspapers as an advocate for aviation and for female pilots. So she was getting pretty famous at this time, grazing covers. June 17th through 18th of 1928, it says overnight stardom Amelia Earhart, pilot Wilmer Stoltz, and co-pilot and mechanic Lewis Gordon depart from Newfoundland in the Friendship, which is a plane. It was a tri-motor seaplane. They arrive in Wales over 20 hours later and are greeted by cheering crowds. Amelia does not think she deserves any acclaim for being the first woman passenger on a transatlantic flight. And she said, Stoltz did all the flying. Stoltz did all the flying, had to. I was just baggage like a sack of potatoes. She was very straightforward.
Wow.
She
Yeah.
said, maybe someday I'll try it alone. So she was the first woman passenger, transatlantic. Summer of 1928, she published a book, Friendship. Oh, sorry. Amelia's book about the Friendship flight, which was the book was titled 20 Hours, 40 Minutes, is published. She teams up with publicist George Putnam to write it, and he quickly promotes her to a celebrity status. So she was kind of famous before, but this book and writing this book really is what gets her just a ton of recognition. She goes on a national book tour. She starts endorsing products. She was like an influencer. She endorses Lucky Strike cigarettes and Modern Air Earhart luggage. She becomes known as Lady Lindy because of her resemblance to Charles Lindbergh, which is funny.
Like physical resemblance, or
I
like
think so.
Because they're both pilots.
I don't know. Doesn't specify, but we'll have to do a side by side of the pictures of the two to be sure. She also becomes aviation editor for Cosmopolitan magazine. So that's the thing. Like she was this loner in high school apparently, but then she becomes an editor of Cosmo, which is just crazy. Hilarious. Okay, 1929, she buys another airplane, a single-engine Lockheed Vega. In the Vega, she participates in the Women's Air Derby race from Santa Monica to Cleveland, and she comes in third. So that was like one of her big flights.
I have one interjection.
Yes.
So I looked it up. Her Lockheed Vega is at the Smithsonian in DC.
Cool.
It's a really pretty airplane. Yeah, I have seen it in person. It's this bright, beautiful red, and it's really cool. And it has I remember it has some of her like luggage that she promoted was like sitting next to it. It's really cool.
So really cool. That's the one you've taken a picture in front of?
Yes, I have a picture. I think I'm there in front of it. If not, I do have a picture of it on my phone. So
yeah, you should definitely pull that up.
Yeah.
In 1929, she founded the 99s Incorporated, the first organization for women aviators. She becomes its president in 1931 and holds that position for 2 years. And she uses her celebrity status to promote the growth of American commercial airlines. So she's doing a lot for the aviation world, which is crazy because she took that like big break in the middle where she sold her original airplane and she didn't think she would fly again. And then she had like this whole revival and second career with aviation. So I thought that was kind of inspiring. Never too late. Okay, 1930, Amelia sets the women's world flying speed record. Now, guess what speed she flew? And she's setting the record for women, 1930.
Half the speed of sound?
I don't know what that is.
Come on, we did a whole episode on it.
It depends on altitude.
That's fair.
Climate. Take a wild guess. How many miles per hour?
60.
Okay, wow.
I don't know. I'm really bad at judging. Okay, this is payback for me quizzing you.
Sorry. I just thought you were gonna go way high. So I was gonna be like, no, the record was so low. But then you way undershot. So that's okay. It's 181 miles an hour. Which,
Okay, I was the third there.
yes, you were right there. It's fine. There's like would be no context for you to know that. But to me, we had just talked about the F1 cars, and on the track they go like 210. And the fastest plane that a woman had flown was 181.
Was this in her Vega, her Lockheed
I
Vega?
believe so. Yeah. Well,
That's
it doesn't
crazy.
specify, but I think she was flying her own plane during it. So between 1930 and 1935, she set 7 women's speed and distance records.
Wow.
She then marries her editor, George Putnam,
That's what I was
in
gonna say, but I didn't want to
1931.
be wrong when you said that name. I'm like, I thought that's her husband, but
Yeah, so she married him a few years after her book came out. It says, wary of the institution of marriage, Amelia refused George's proposals 6 times before she
wow.
agreed. She will emphasize that her marriage is a partnership with dual control. So that was just a note there.
Interesting.
1932, she writes her second book. It was called The Fun of It. Then she's the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean in 1932 as well, May 20th to 21st of 1932. She departs from Newfoundland and lands in a pasture in Northern Ireland.
Wow.
So this act earns her the Distinguished Flying Cross from Congress, the Cross of Knight of the Legion of Honor from the French government, and the Gold Medal of the National Geographic Society from President Hoover, becoming the first woman to ever receive that award from the president.
Wow.
The site of her landing also has a small museum. So it's the Amelia Earhart Center in Ireland in the pasture.
That's cool. You were supposed to go to Ireland. You could have gone.
I know. I don't know. We'll see when we'll see if that happens. Okay, August of that same year, I believe, she becomes the first woman to fly solo across the North American continent and back. So she's setting all sorts of distance records. She visits the White House the next year, and she develops a friendship with First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. And then she flies across North America for the second time, breaking her own record with a faster flight time.
I read one time that she was at like a state dinner with Eleanor Roosevelt, and then they both snuck out without anybody knowing, and Amelia Earhart took her on a flight.
Really?
Yeah, I want to look that up because I've seen that a few times, but
That would
it's pretty
be,
cool.
I bet the Secret Service was like
I don't think it was a thing
so,
then, was it?
good question. But yeah, that might be more of a modern thing.
Yeah,
It probably
because I
was.
do remember that they were good friends.
Because they would be just panicked if they lost the first lady and
Where's
then
the
they're like,
first
wait,
lady?
she's flying. That'd be crazy. Okay, 1935, she's the first person to fly solo from Honolulu, Hawaii to Oakland, California. This year, she will also fly solo from Los Angeles to Mexico and later from Mexico City to New York. So it says in between flights, she also is a career counselor to women at Purdue University. So again, she's
Wow.
doing a lot. She's a busy lady. Purdue University finances a new plane for Amelia in 1936, which is the Lockheed Electra 10E, which she calls the Flying Laboratory. Though the plane was purchased less for scientific research and more for Amelia's new dream. I don't know what this quote means. Um, okay, I don't know. She wanted to circumnavigate the flight as close to the equator as she could, and I believe it was in this plane that she was going to do it.
Yep.
And so that was bought for her. So Amelia and her husband planned for the world flight, raising money, consulting with advisors, mechanics, and navigators, which is something when we talk about the book, Amelia Rose Earhart's book, that really caught me off guard is how much of this was, I mean, how long it takes to plan one, but also like raising money from sponsors and stuff. I didn't even think of that as part of the flight or prep process. So it's really interesting that the original Amelia Earhart had to do the exact same thing. which is wild.
You have to
Okay,
sell people on your dream.
yeah, and then be like, give me money, it'll pay off for you. But okay, so Amelia and her Amelia and her navigator Fred Noonan, along with Captain Harry Manning and stunt pilot Paul Mance, fly the first leg of the trip from Oakland, California to Honolulu in 15 hours and 47 minutes. When they try to continue from Honolulu 3 days later, the plane ground loops during takeoff and they have to call off the flight. So not good. It was kind of an early issue that they ran into. She departs on a second attempt. So the first attempt was March, and she tries a second attempt June 1st, 1937, this time departing from Miami, Florida, with a plan of traveling west to east. Fred Noonan is her only crew member on this second flight. They complete nearly 22,000 miles of the flight, stopping in South America, Africa, India, and Lae, New Guinea. July 2nd, 1937, Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan depart from Lae. Their destination is Howland Island, a tiny island in the Pacific, only 13,200 feet long and 2,650 feet wide. They cannot find the island, however, and they lose radio contact with the Coast Guard, who can hear that they are lost but cannot return communication. They disappear over the Pacific. President Roosevelt issues a massive search for Amelia and Noonan, and George Putnam finances his own search until October of that year, but their efforts are unsuccessful. And on January 5th, it actually was almost 2 years later that she was actually declared dead. But she is declared legally dead in a court in Los Angeles on January 5th, 1939.
Wow.
They didn't give up hope for quite some time. But yeah, that is Amelia Mary Earhart. So she inspired Amelia Rose Earhart's circumnavigation around the world. And so we read her book. So Sam, what were your initial thoughts on the book?
I loved the book. I highlighted in blue for blue skies because I know if Amelia Earhart sees this, she always says blue skies and she's super into colors and like creativity. So I highlighted things that mattered in blue.
Nice.
Or that I really enjoyed. So
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, go through some of the quotes that you highlighted. So I think
yeah, so
good.
One of my favorite things that I read was she talks about, and so her book uses a lot of analogies to flying, and then like kind of she uses that as an analogy for general life experience. And so she talks about this aviation experience called ground effect. So she says, seconds after a plane takes off, while within one wingspan of the ground, circular airflow around the wing gives a helpful buoyant push. And I'll post a picture, like a diagram of what the airflow looks like. But you can actually feel this if you're just in a passenger airplane. It kind of is that like feeling of floating.
Okay.
And she uses the analogy of you have this like 1 second of just kind of unknown floatingness to either propel yourself into the ground or push yourself up and fly. And I really liked that analogy. So she said, when you're in ground effect, you and you alone have the power to either propel yourself upward into full flight or yield to the gravity and allow yourself to quickly sink back down to earth. I really liked that. I have had a difficult year personally, and this really reminded me, I felt like kind of the end of this year, I was kind of in this like ground effect where I was just kind of like floating. And I feel like with the support of my friends that are like the lifting of the wings and my family, it's like propelled me to be like back to who I am as a person and kind of make a better life for myself.
Yeah, I think it's a good analogy. I liked that part too. It was like,
yeah,
I liked that whole attitude of the book where it's like, yeah, you can, like, she's kind of like, just go do it, which I like.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times there's these like self-help or motivational things that you see on Instagram or whatever, but half of those still, like, people say, oh, go follow your dreams, go do this, go be your own person, but then constantly people are bringing up like what the world is telling them or any criticism that they're receiving or blah blah blah, and they still care about what other people are saying so much. And I liked that in her book she's like, I'm just gonna do it. Like I don't really care what all of you people are telling me, because
Yeah.
this is what I want to do. Like the big example, and one of the my favorite parts was in the beginning where she was trying to just plan the course of her she was just trying to plan her flight, and the whole point was kind of that she was inspired by the original Amelia Earhart. So there was a lot of pressure from the outside to follow the exact same flight path and then also use like the same plane. And she's like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I like that she was like, I just am not going to care what other people say. I want to do it in this other plane and I want to do it in these stops. So yeah, like it doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
I like that attitude more than just complaining that she got criticism. She was just like, okay, I'm getting criticism. I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, that's her.
So
That's what she calls promoting yourself to the captain of your own life, which I liked.
yes, yeah,
Like
that was
you
a
can
really good
promote
chapter.
yourself to captain at any point and take charge.
Right, right.
I
And I
like
think that's
that.
a really good attitude. And I think honestly that's the attitude that's missing in a lot of the women in STEM conversations, because again, people are just, I think a lot of times just complaining about any criticism that they get, where, you guys just gotta do it at some point. Like even if someone is criticizing you, just like get out there and you can decide what you're doing. So I really liked it. Definitely. I mean, oh, and so by the way, it's 16 chapters for each one of the 16 legs of her flight for the audience who doesn't know. And so each, like Sam mentioned, there's, each part is like a phase of flight, and she kind of gives an analogy that's like motivational. So yeah, I would recommend reading it for sure, especially if you're into flight. I think it's really good just because it'll make a lot of sense. It's fine to read it, obviously, if you're not into flight, but it's very inspiring you know, if you are into it. And it's crazy that it took her like 2 years to plan the flight,
Yeah,
also, which it was much longer than I thought, I guess it would take.
that makes sense. It's
Yeah,
a lot on the line, like two lives
for
and
sure. Yeah, and she had to, make sure she had all the qualifications to do it and stuff. And then again, she had to like raise a ton of money from sponsors. So that was a whole thing. And she had to sell them on the fact. That was another thing that with her not choosing to do the same flight and the same plane, using the same plane, like she had to convince sponsors that she could do it, that this was worth doing, that their money would be a good investment. So all of that took a lot of time, which the logistics were just much more involved than I had thought.
yeah. I think it's interesting, like, because she had to be super self-confident, but she talks a little bit about imposter syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't, if for those of you that don't know, I'm going to try to explain it the best I can. Imposter syndrome is like you have all the qualifications, you are as prepared as anybody else in the room, but you've convinced yourself that you are an imposter and you're not as qualified and people are going to find you out. I have struggled with imposter syndrome since getting into engineering. I still struggle with it occasionally. And it just made me feel better because I feel like I look at her and I'm like looked at her for a long time on TV and through her world flight, and she seems like such a confident woman, and she is, but she has also struggled with things like imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
and it's okay, but you can't let that stop you from, moving forward with your career and your life.
Yeah, I agree. It's comforting to know that you're not like the only one, but also
Yeah.
comforting to see someone just be like, well, I feel this way, but I'm just gonna choose to not care.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Um, yeah,
cool. Any other major takeaways?
those were my favorite. Those were my two big ones that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it was a good one. I liked it. And I liked that it gave me an kind of an opportunity to like deep dive Amelia Mary Earhart and Amelia Rose Earhart. So I think that's all. Good book. We recommend it. And thanks for watching this bonus episode. And make sure to subscribe on any platform you're listening to, and a review would be very helpful, very generous. That will be your Christmas gift to us as we enter the Christmas season. So go leave us a review, please. And that's all for this episode. We will see you on Wednesday for your regularly scheduled programming. And we'll see you later. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.